Hello. Hopefully you can hear me out there in YouTube land. If you can let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see my table, that would be great. It's really hard to tell, and I'm not seeing any. I'm not seeing the voice part going on my computer. So hopefully it's working. But just let me know if you can see everything clearly and hear me. Boy, it's always such an awkward start, isn't it? This just can you guys hear me? Please let me know because I'm oh good. Thank you so much, Chini, for letting me know. I'm not seeing the little bouncing dots on my computer screen, and I've been struggling with weak internet this morning, so I was a little concerned that maybe nothing was getting broadcast. Okay, great. Oh, Brenda says sounds a little echo. It could be I'm in the I wonder what mic is picking up. I wish I had a little bit more control. Hold on a second. How does it sound now? Does it sound any different? Can you hear anything differently? I'm just wondering if this sounds better. Okay, I'm gonna plug my other microphone back in. Okay, guys, okay, you know what? I'm seeing the bouncing dots now, so I think this probably will sound a little bit better. I hope anyway. So what we're going to do, oh, now it's stronger. Okay, I'm wondering if maybe I didn't have my mic plugged in all the way. All right, great. Okay, so hopefully I'll be savvy enough to chop off this first minute of of nonsense so that the replay viewers can have a nice nice professional start to our stream here. But as you know, I'm doing another pastel. It's pastel month, so I'm doing another pastel tutorial, and I'm filming from the room of Horde, which I don't work in. I don't film in very often these days, but so if it sounds a little different, that could be part of it too. I went to Rockland, Rockport, Camden this weekend with my husband, and I took some photos at the coast, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of mash up a few photos that I took, and also paint a bit from memory because I was feeling that my work was getting a little too formulaic and I was relying on other people's reference photos too much. So I wanted to do something that was a little bit more freeing. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions as we go along, I will take a few breaks during the tutorial to answer questions. That way folks watching the replay later can skip ahead if they don't want to listen to them. But that way you can get your questions answered if you want. If you do post a question, type the word question in all caps. So that way I'll be able to find it when it comes time for Q&A. So I'll show you the photos that I took. I just have them on my phone here. So this one, I kind of like the overall composition of this one, where we've got all these rocks and we've got a little bit of the foliage. I might go a little bit brighter with foliage because it hasn't quite turned yet, but I love the fall foliage. Then we can kind of see a little like inlet over there in the background. And then I also got some pictures of these little flowers that were growing kind of out of some crevices in the rocks. And I thought, especially this one here, I like the look of that. And I want to kind of mash up a few of those photos together. So I think we'll start off with the first photo here. I'll obviously extend it a bit because I do have this kind of tall. But I want to start in there. And I'm also going to pump up the colors a little bit. It was a rather gray day. It had been kind of like, I'll just bring this a little closer. It had been just cloudy off and on. And I want to get a little bit more color in here. So so that's what we're going to do. I'm actually going to scoop my pastels off a little bit. These are the Sennelier pastels. I'm going to put something under there too to hopefully keep it from reflecting my lights. Oh, that actually might work all right. And then we'll go from there. Oh, you know what? Let me stick my kneaded eraser down there. As long as I'm like really good and I don't have to erase anything, that should work good if it doesn't spin my camera around. Okay, I think that's going to work. All right, I'm going to start with a little bit of blue in the sky. Now, I don't want to go too far off, but I do want to have some color in there. So I'm using the Sennelier pastels that I picked up because they've been a really crazy, awesome price on on Amazon lately, and the 80 set was around $80 this morning. So I did link up to that one because that's the best value. But this is the 120 set here that I'm using. I think that one's selling for around 140 on Amazon, which is still a pretty good price. But I got mine when it went down to like let's see, I want my horizon line a little bit higher here. I got mine when it went down to 120. So if you can get them for $1 a stick, regardless of the size set, I think that's a really good deal. I'm going to throw in some of this color for the water as well. There's a lot of good options for pastel, a lot of affordable ones too. So, you don't have to spend a lot, but if you do find a good deal, I mean, like, why not? Okay, and I'm going to stick this on its end. And I want to blend out the sky a little bit. I probably won't blend out the water too much, but I want to get a bit of a base on the sky so that I can go in and I think I want to throw some clouds in. I want to do a little bit more to the sky. So I'll have to rely on memory for that. And it's a lot easier to paint something from memory or to rely on your memory a bit for coloring if it's a place you've actually been to. So I think that's where I've been a little bit I'm struggling a little bit with using reference photos. I think I'll go a little stronger up higher in the sky, going with this kind of darker cerulean looking color. Not a lot of pressure because I'm going to blend it in. Oops. It's certainly turned to fall in Maine. It's gotten much more chilly and dry. I also like to get a little bit of like a pinkish tone in there as well. Throw a little bit of that in the water. Anything you do to the sky, you can do to the water. And as we get over to where I'm going to have foliage, I don't want to apply pastel, but I will drag it over there so I have a little bit of color. I'm working on the Canson XL sand grain paper like I have been all month. I really like this paper for oil pastels, and it's pretty decent for soft pastels. It's definitely good for the price. I wouldn't say it's my favorite soft pastel paper, but as far as an all-around like one paper that will kind of get you through it, I think it's a really good option. I want to do some clouds, even though there's no clouds here. I want to have a little bit of pink in them. So you want to do larger clouds towards the top. And as you get down to the horizon, they would get smaller. So just always keep that in mind. Things closer to the horizon line where the sky meets the earth, those things get smaller. And your sky generally gets lighter closer to the horizon line as well. I don't want to get overly blended in my sky either. Which is something that I feel like I've been over blending a bit too. So a lot of the pastel artwork I look at that I like is very, you see the strokes a lot more. And I kind of want to get some of that in there. And this set has so many beautiful light tones that, I don't really have to blend too much if I don't want to. Oh, my camera focus is bouncing. Unfortunately, with this device I'm streaming with, I'm using a Chromebook, and I can't use software for my webcam with it. So hopefully, the more I get going here, the less the focus will adjust. I apologize, but there's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately. I wish there was a way. If anybody knows a way to set focus on a camera on a Chromebook, please let me know. But I searched and I couldn't find any information for that. I think once I get a little bit more down on the paper, it'll behave a little bit better. I'm adding a little bit of navy blue in here. I'm going to add some of the shore in there as well. Some of these kind of like this one feels kind of scratchy. Some of the land masses back there. I'm going to blend that out because I don't want that to be in focus. That's further away. Blend that a little bit. I want some yellow in my sky as well. I think I need a rag for my hands before I pick up the yellow so I don't end up with green. And when I'm choosing a yellow to put in clouds, I always go with a more orangey or warmer yellow because it's less likely to go green on me. I think this would be a pretty good one here. It's a little dark, but I can always add some white or something on top of it. There's a really pale yellow. I think I'll add in there too on top to kind of blend it out. I think there's something like 500 or close to 500 colors in the Sennelier pastel range. So, I mean, you could definitely get the exact color you wanted to if you went that way. But layering up makes the colors really lively and interesting, I think. Yeah, a little bit of that color in the water as well. I if I want to maybe blend out the bottoms of the clouds a little bit. If you love pastels and you want some more information, I have my pastel course, Soft Pastels for Beginners, 50% off this month. So you got about one more week, maybe a little less than a week left of that sale. It is linked down below. And the coupon code is pastel50. If you're not watching on YouTube and you have to search my class on Teachable, just go to lindsayweirich.teachable.com. But that gives you all the basics, and there's 4 projects to complete, and you don't have to worry about the annoying camera refocusing because it's all pre-recorded. I always forget to mention the class. But it's nice because like you don't have to hunt through videos to find exactly what you want. You can get all the basics, and then you'll be able to go from there, which is nice, I think. Okay, I'm going to tap this off into the trash, get the extra dust off my paper. Now I'm going to move over here and work on some of the trees that are kind of off in the distance. I'll throw a little bit of foliage in there as well. Get this kind of rusty. I think next weekend it'll be nice. It'll really start to be getting pretty in Maine. Usually by the first weekend in October, second week of October is right around peak. Maybe I don't know if I want to get too bright with my colors yet because I've got some closer foliage to put in there too. I kind of blend it out with this lighter sap green. And then I think I will do some rocks. This is almost the same color as the paper. This is the gray. Canson XL mixed media sand grain paper, and it's the gray tone. Oh, this really dark green here. I like these half sticks because they are unwrapped, so I don't have to deal with unwrapping them, and they're less crumbly than the full stick Sennelier, and I think it's just because they can get kind of banged around a bit in their wrappers or something. I don't know. It seems like when I have the wrapped ones and I have to unwrap them, they get really crumbly. And maybe it's just the effort of unwrapping them that is hard on them. I'm not sure. But I definitely recommend these half stick sets, especially if you don't have a lot of colors, because then you get twice the amount of colors for the same price, because you're getting the same amount, but you're getting more variety because of the fact that they're only half stick. All right. I am not done with the clouds because I don't like the skinny marks. I think I need to go in with some broken pastels. I also need to tip this up and see if I'm crooked. I have a feeling my horizon line's a little crooked. It just feels that way. I'm going to tap in the trash again. I don't have my grid mat in here, so it's hard to say. Oh, let's see. Maybe I'll leave the clouds alone for a bit, come back to them. Let's do get our rocks placed. I think I'll start kind of just, I like these, whoops, I like the, just big shapes that I've got here. Everything's just kind of growing up around like that. Let me get in some darks. Now when you break them, they crumble too because they're so soft. But it's got to be done. Don't want to think of your work, your supplies as so precious you can't break them or use them. They're more useful broken. Then you get these strokes on their sides. I got to figure out where I'm going to want to put the plant. I'm thinking actually over here would probably make more sense because I've got this big foliage here. If I have the plant kind of going through the rocks here, let me go back to that picture, the one that I really liked. Oh, right there. So I think I'll want to have it so it's kind of, yeah, let me just draw this rock in a little bit more and have the plant kind of coming out of the rock here and growing up a little bit. So I've got a guide through the picture like that. Okay, so plant's going to go there. Maybe I'll just put a little indication with green that plant's going to go there. Now we can go back to because I like the rocks in that first picture a lot. I like how there's some browns. It's almost like a divide. And you get some like rusty bits in the brown rocks. You even have some like seaweed down here by the water. Which I'm just going to kind of base in. I guess I will probably just pull in maybe, it's not really sandy there, but you do have a little bit of a lower, you do a little bit of more shallower look. So I'm going to drag in some of this green and then maybe I'll find a way to integrate that elsewhere because I do like it when because we do have a sunnier day, and when you have a sunnier day, you will see more greens in the water. And then I can work into the blue a little bit more. You can always mute your colors down, so I'm not worried about it being too vibrant because I'll just go lighter if I need to. I want a little bit more blue in my sky too. I do like to get my sky all settled before I go in with like trees in front of it, so maybe I will. Maybe I'll just putter with this a little bit more. I like to jump around because then it keeps me from overworking any area. All right. I feel like I need more more bold clouds. I don't like how they're not fluffy. They're not evoking. I guess I'm trying to evoke a little bit of a last burst of summer, and that wasn't evoking anything. A little bit of color from into the water. So this is really hard to do with other people's reference photos if you haven't been to the location that you're trying to draw, to like impart a different season or something like that. So that's it. There's a case for using your own photos for sure. And I'm just going to hit the highlights, the tops of the clouds with this really, really light yellow. Any sort of like little floofy texture. You're going to put a little bit that kind of coming into the shore where the waves are breaking in. I'm going to tap this into the trash. And let's see, about a little bit of pure white. And even a little bit maybe on the underside of the clouds too. All right, I'll leave that be for now. I might go back to them, but that'll give me a good way to get started. I'm just going to blend it into the void where the trees will be. I still like to work back to front with the pictures, just to so I don't have to go back and try to paint around things. I don't like painting around things very much. All right, now we can have some fun with some foliage. I'm going to start off with this kind of sap green or olive green color. Just get some leaves, some clumps of leaves. Let's see, we'll take a little bit of brown. Maybe let's put, there's a little branch in there. I think I'll put maybe that branch there. A little tree trunk here. Just put a few little marks, a few lines. Some deciduous colors happening here. I can go brighter as we're coming forward, so they'll advance a little bit more and push those other muted colors back. Catch that first glimpse of fall, that beautiful orange right next to the blue sky. Leaves just start to turn. The trees haven't decided what they want to do yet. The trees haven't decided if it's fall or summer, and they're just starting to give you a little color. Reluctant to go all the way into reds. The colors adjacent to one another, and they'll appear more vibrant rather than overlapping or mixing them. As a contrast, we can go in with some of this like kind of almost viridian, because we would have pine trees kind of in behind as well, giving us a nice contrast. There's always, oops, sorry about the microphone. I just tapped it. I'm going to move that over a little bit so I have room for my arm. Maybe if I put these really dark, this dark kind of viridian color in here, I'll blend it out a bit so that it really locks into the paper, and I can go over it opaquely if I need to. I need to get some darks under there. I might even go in with a little bit of a dark, that same dark charcoal color I used as rock shadow. I like to do this if I have a real dark, because I can reclaim some of the tooth by pressing this darker pigment into the tooth, and then I can go over it with a lighter color, and it will really have a good contrast and stand out. It would be hard to do this over a lighter color. This works really good with a dark color because dark colors are more transparent, and then I can work over with a lighter color, which would be more opaque. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's good for darker, good for your darker colors. And I'm going to tap off the like remaining pigment that didn't lock into the paper grain into the trash. I'm going to take a quick break for questions before I go on with this. So I will check the chat and see what we have. Remember, if you do have a question, put the word question in all capital letters so I will spot it. Otherwise, I might not, because I'm just kind of scanning through really quickly. I don't think I see any questions. Oh, here's one by Brenda Walsh. If I'm brand new to pastels, one painting so far, should I buy the Sennelier 80 set today or wait till I have more paintings under my belt? Let's see. You've done a pastel, so you must have one set already. These are really soft, so they're going to go really well on top of like a medium or a hard pencil pastel. So if you have pastel pencils, new pastels, the Faber-Castell Gold Faber, or any of the Mungio soft pastels, these will layer on top of them and give you a little more versatility. I think if you like pastels, if you think you're going to do a bunch, then yes. If you're not sure if you like them or not, you might want to hold off. It's a great price, but if you don't know if you like them or not, then you might want to just use what you have for a while and see if you really like it. And even if you pay more down the road, at least you'll be sure that that's something you want. Lollipop Strawberry asks, what kind of pastels do you like to use when drawing, and what is your favorite color pastel? My favorite Schmincke, but Schmincke is so expensive that I hasten to recommend it, and they are also really, really soft. So I don't do a whole painting in Schmincke. I use them kind of for the final layer. I like New Pastel for the bottom layers. The Senneliers are excellent. The Paul Rubens are actually really good too, but Sennelier's actually been a little bit cheaper per stick with these bigger sets. I started to use the Soho pastels, and I really like those, the round ones, the round half stick set. They're more expensive than Sennelier currently. There's a lot of really good brands. I think it just depends on if you prefer a softer or firmer pastel. Chini the Gray says, we don't come to the Frugal Crafter YouTube channel for professional content, Lindsay. Well, that's, I don't know how to feel about that. Okay, I think I've caught up. I'll see if there's any new questions added at the end. Question, can Mod Podge be used over oil pastels as a fixative? One way you could do oil pastel, Mod Podge to fix pastel is if you have a jelly plate, which I can show you. I got one right here. Well, I'll show you one in the package so that that's these guys right here. You can get them up to size 16 by 20. And you could roll out the Mod Podge, and then you could press your pastel painting against it, and that would give you a layer to seal it. But as far as brushing Mod Podge on, I think you would be in a world of sadness if you tried that, because you would just smear everything. I would recommend a spray fixative that's designed for pastels, or even, if you're on a budget, hairspray. The cheaper the better, because it won't have the silicones and things like that in it that can like leave oil spots on your paper. Brenna asks, is oil pastel okay to blend with fingers, non-toxic? Well, I guess it depends on the brand. If we're buying a kid's oil pastel, they're usually non-toxic. Let's see, I got a box right here of what I would say. Let's see, this is artist quality. What's this one say? These I think are very similar to the Paul Rubens. I don't see the words non-toxic here, but they could be here. I could just be missing it. I blend with my fingers. I've never had any problems. I wash my hands afterwards, but you can use silicone, like the nail art tip things. I use those for sometimes blending oil pastel, but for the most part, I use my fingers, and I've never run into a problem. But if you're worried about it, you can stick with kids' non-toxic oil pastels. Crayola makes a fantastic oil pastel. But honestly, I think they're a little bit more careful about what they put in pastels, because they are usually handled with your bare hands. So like you're unlikely to find a lot of products in pastels like cadmiums and leads and things like that, because they can go airborne. Let's see. I already answered that one. How are the Faber-Castell oil pastels? I have some, and they haven't made it to the top of the try it list yet. I don't know. I've never used Faber-Castell's oil pastels, and I know they have a couple different lines, but there's their Gold Faber Studio soft pastels, I think, are fantastic. They're one of the sets I recommend for beginners, because they're affordable but a really good quality. Okay. Alrighty. If I missed your question, I do apologize. You can repost it with the word question in all caps, and I will answer it later. And of course, I see people helping each other out, and that is wonderful. Keep helping out your friends, because that's how we all learn. All right, so now I want some also really vibrant greens. So I'm going to do some stippling, a stipple and a drag, kind of dash drag, So I'm not just dotting, I'm actually just kind of little tiny drags. And I'm going to do some of these chartreuse disorganized branches, like clumps of foliage right on top of the darker color here. Maybe I'll drag out a few more conifer-like shapes, and then I can blend that out with my Viridian color. Those obstinate pine trees that hang over the sea. I just want a tangle of colors here for the most part. And it gives a little bit of an order as to why we have this dark green mass when we see these shapes. If you want, you could even take a pastel pencil and throw in a few. I'm just going to scribble that off a bit, make sure that it's got some good. Sometimes it almost feels like pastel pencils will seal themselves, Pastel pencils are really hard. They're harder than your hardest pastels, so they're going to scrape away as much as they are going to leave any color. So I can add some of that. I'm going to see if I can tap some of that. Tap some of that off and use some of that pigment, actually. I think I'm going to grab a new pastel. I've got my pastel drawers right in front of me. My laptop's on them, actually. Just takes me a while to figure out what drawer I have what color in. And I'm going to look for a dark green new pastel if I have one. Oh, I have move my mic over a little bit. Your square pastels tend to be a little bit firmer. This is not a new pastel, but it is, I think it's like a Mungio. and get a little bit of a sharper line with them. It's still a little too bright for what I want, but I do have my box of new pastels over here. When I need a little bit more definition. And you might be able to get some really good prices on the new pastels because Prismacolor is discontinuing their open stock and only going to sell sets. So if you have a local art shop, it would not hurt to stop in and see if they're discontinuing their new pastels. Or at least, you can go pick and choose some colors that you like. The harder pastels don't wear down quite as quickly as, this is what they look like, by the way. They're pretty. They don't wear down as quickly as softer pastels. So, probably they don't sell enough open stock. I'm sure that's why they're discontinuing them. I mean, if they were selling and they were making a ton of money at them, they wouldn't get rid of them. So I have a feeling that's probably why. But it's a good way to get a bargain if you're looking for something. I want a really bright little yellow. There's that little burst of yellow there. It's actually almost like a peach color. So maybe I'll just go in with some little bit of peach and see. Do want some cooler yellow as well. Let's do this one. Let's see how opaque this is. The colors can look a little different when you start layering them too. I might actually use some fixative on this piece before I do the little plant in front to kind of darken stuff, and then so the plant and highlight and the rocks can be a little bit more vibrant. So you can use fixative as a design element. Generally, I get frustrated with how much it darkens my pieces, but then sometimes I like that because I want to specifically deepen the tones in the background so I can go in really opaquely in the foreground. All right, and I think I actually want to fuzz out this shore part in back a little bit more to push it further back. And I want to do something to that area there, maybe getting this kind of like a lavendery gray. I like that. That works. Then maybe just a little smidgen of that back there. And then I got to peek that water back in. So it can go around that little bit of land. Just got to hint at it. Okay. Now for our rocks, let's actually use some of this blue. Think of just kind of going around the face of the rocks. Now these lighter colors, if I do use fixative, they will kind of fade away. So just kind of keep that in mind and plan for that. Plan for things darkening when you're going to do this technique. That one could use a break. And these rocks that kind of almost point in to the land. Much darker down here. And then our plant's going to pop out of there. So Let's see, we've got a nice sunny sky. We've got some pink in our sky, so we can have some pink bouncing off our rocks too, I think. And we could do some purple while we're at it, but more of like a more, I think, of like a lavender in the highlights. We can even start to smear and blend. Maybe even a little bit of blue in there. Do I want a blue I've used? I feel like I want something more of a periwinkle. And that's a pretty color, and I think I might just sneak some of that into the water in the sky as well, because I like that. I'm also thinking about the purple flowers I'm going to throw in there. The tourists were still out in full, well, I don't know about in full force, but it seemed like there was an awful lot of tourists still out and about. Jason and I thought that we had managed to wait them out. But no such luck. Not that that was a problem or anything. The Maine people that come to Maine to tour usually are pretty cool people, but it just gets so crowded in Camden. The downtown was so busy. I'm like, I don't think I can cope with this. I am not good in big crowds. A lot of this, when you're doing pastel, I think it's just such a freeing experience, like being a child, and you can just kind of almost let. I liken it to like when if you ever played with a Ouija board as a kid, and you just let your arms go. That's kind of what you do here. You just kind of let your arms go. Trust your gut. Trust where you think should go. Where you think colors should go. I'm not using black. I might use black at the end, but I like to save black to the very last thing in case I need it. Then I always have one step darker I can go. But I try not to use black until I'm absolutely sure that I need that extra dark. Kind of making a little, not a lot of detail, but just some kind of like shadows back here to maybe show some rocks. A little bit of interest, not a lot, but just a little bit of mid-range detail back there. All right, I'm going to tap this off over the trash. And if you have any questions, I'm going to take a peek and see if there's any questions that have been added. All right, and I'm going to wipe my filthy hands off while I'm at it before I touch my computer. Okay, and I want to thank Joe Maskey for a couple things. For one, for being in the chat here and moderating the chat, and also for the live, Lindsay's Frugalites group. I keep wanting to call it Live Show Frugalites because that's what it used to be called. But he runs a group on Facebook for fans of the channel, and it's so awesome. So many beautiful paintings are shared every day, and I highly encourage it if you like to look at pretty art. Let's see. I'm just looking for questions and to see if any have been sent. Here we go. Susan asks, Lindsay, when you apply new pastels as an underpainting before the softer pastels, ? Sorry if you mentioned it already, just joined. Yes, Susan, and I think Joe did probably get back to you on that. Generally, I would sketch out with new pastels because they're harder and they're gonna bond to the paper a little bit more. And it's kind of like an oil painting. The fat over lean rule means like you thin down your first layers of oil paint with solvent, and then you might go with straight paint, and then you'd add oil to your paint as you're doing layers on top. That's so your paint doesn't crack. But for For pastels, it's more of like an adhesion thing. You need to put your firmer layers down first, and your softer layers on top, because the softer pastels are not going to disturb the firmer pastels, but the firmer pastels can disturb the softer pastels. But the fun thing about that is if I take a darker new pastel, that's because it's a very hard pastel, or I take a pastel pencil. Let me just demo this. I'm just going to open up my box of pastels so I can get to the darker ones. So I take one of these darker pastels. Ooh, that's a pretty color. Let me get some of that happening. I can go in and I can blend, I can carve shapes and colors in. It will press some of the previous softer pastels down. It will scrape some away. It will leave some marks, but it's going to be very sketchy and very kind of unpredictable. It's going to be definitely, the coverage will vary. It's not going to be really reliable, but it can give me some details like cracks in the rocks. And of course, I can use force and I can blend. Like if I use, let's see, let's do a light gray. I'll do a smaller piece of that. I could go in and use this firmer pastel. It's going to blend it almost like a blending stump, but it's going to put some color down as well. So generally use the new pastels first, but with techniques like this for going back in and sculpting the previous layers, new pastels are really good for that. It's nice to have a variety. I would say when you're getting started, it's probably better just to have a medium hardness, like kind of like that Soho set I was using last week, or the Faber-Castell Gold Favor Studio, because it's just kind of, it gives you it's firm enough to do those basic sketches and to layer up a few times without getting it too oversaturated and too smushy. But it will kind of, it's a better way to begin because it just is a little bit more versatile. But if you have those harder pastels, it's fun to go back in and kind of sculpt into the previous layers. But generally, yeah, your harder pastels, you go harder to softer to layer up, and if you want things to stick reliably. But if you want to experiment, go back and mold your pastels. Going back in with the harder ones lets you kind of scrape them around a bit and do some interesting techniques as well. I'm getting rid of some of the grain in here. I'm going to tap that off again. I got a lot of crumbs where the new pastel kind of scraped off the sennelier a bit. I like to see a little bit of the speckling from the stuff underneath, from the paper underneath. All right, let's see. Okay, I think that. Oh my gosh, Joe says we got over 100 new members in the past weekend in the group because I mentioned it on Sat Chat. Oh, that's awesome. You guys all better behave. Don't make more work for Joe. I think everyone's pretty well behaved in the group, but let's see. I think now I'm gonna move over to that other reference photo. I'm gonna see if I can put the plant in. If not, I might just give it a quick spray of hairspray, to be honest, because I'm inside and it will dry quicker if I need to. Hopefully I have a can of hairspray down here. I usually do. All right, let's see. I think I will start with some green. Actually, maybe I'll do the new pastel so that I can get a sharper line. I really like what's happening here. So kind of like how you've got a little plant kind of coming around this way. It's almost like it's all being blown by the wind, and then you've got some coming out this way, and then you've got this kind of coming up this way. And I also like just the little kind of the grasses that are just kind of doing their thing. It's always windy. It's always very windy. That part of this part of the world, it seems like. Maybe it's not, but it always seems like whenever I go to the coast, it's always windy. I'm sure there's some parts of day. Probably morning it's less windy, but and this will give us some scale. You let those grasses break the horizon line. All right, I like the placement of that. So now I'm just going to think, is there any more detail? I think I want to do a little bit of detail on the rocks before I commit to putting those plants in anymore. Now that I've got a good idea of where they are. Oh, here's a little tip. If you're tapping your work off, so you see how I have all this dark here and I've got this bright sky over here. I don't want to tap it that way. I want to tap it that way so nothing's going to fall across the sky, or flip it completely upside down and just bang on the kind of knock on the back like you're knocking on the door, like you're knocking on a door, so it can fall in your trash can. My trash can is about probably 15 inches wide, maybe. You don't have to use a regular trash can too. You can always use like a tote, like a rectangular tote or something. So, so you can have a wide enough area to tap your work in, your dust into, so you don't get it all over your floor. So kind of keep that in mind. If you feel like you're making a mess, you don't want to tap it over your trash because you just feel like you're making a mess when you do that. Add some nice golden, warm autumnal highlights to our rocks. That looks really good when it's next to a purple too, because it's oh, I would love a rich, deep purple. Those might be kind of hard to come by in a professional set because purples are notoriously not light fast. So if you have a student grade set, you might find some really, really vibrant lilacs and violets and purples where you may struggle to find those in a professional set just because of the fugitiveness of it. So that's something to, that's why they call them cheap and cheerful, like those student grade sets that have all the colors. And it's just because they're not necessarily like, these colors are probably the brightest. Those may not even be light fast, but you'll have fewer colors like that in a professional range generally. Now this is almost like a indigo, but I like how really rich. It's not black. Probably the darkest I'm going to get without it being black. I can use it to cool down the temperature further back as well. Blend it in because I don't want it to be as dark. You want some darks here. Okay, I feel like I do need a little bit more rocky texture, and I think I'll use a new pastel to throw that in. I like the lavender next to that yellow. I think that looks really good. And plus I'm going to have purple flowers, so. All right. I'm going to try to get our plants in without adding fixative, but if I need to, then I'll use hairspray. All right. Now the softer pastel wants to skim across the texture on the paper and not give me a smooth line. So again, I can go over that with a new pastel to blend it. Like just try to recreate that same line. I could go a shade darker or a shade lighter and actually like give it a shadow while I'm at it. Like I did a shade darker, I could do a shade, I did a shade lighter, I could do a shade darker. This color is nice. You can also break your new pastels if you need like a if you need a sharp edge again. Try not to have them stop at the horizon. Try to have them either go extend above the horizon or stop before the horizon. But having them like land at the same line as the horizon is not as visually pleasing or interesting. So just kind of keep that in mind. Maybe I'll have the flower actually grow out here and lean over. So I've got, maybe actually come out from below. Trying to think. I don't want it smack dab in the middle, but I already have those grasses are taking up a lot of space. Oh, maybe I'll have it come out this way. Start with a darker color. I'm going to do it with a new pastel first because I can always go over with a softer one if I need to. Ooh, that's showing up really well, actually. Kind of debating, maybe I want another one. Maybe I want another one of those plants. Let's see. I'm going to try this this lighter. So this new pastel is actually is laying down the color really well. I'm quite surprised and pleased with how well it's doing here. I'm going to need a little bit more dark. That's doing really well. If you're having difficulty though, and using a different paper, a smoother paper, just give it some fixative. I think I'm getting more and more used to this paper the more I've been using it for pastels. Because at first I was thinking, I don't know if this is the best, but it's such a affordable paper and it's pretty decent and easy to find. Well, it's easy to find in America. It might not be easier to find everywhere, but let's tap that off. Oh, that's not the same color. This must have been the color I was using. Put a few little buds on this guy. Let's see how this color, I bet this one is going to really show up. I want these to be those darker purple. They almost look like daisies. They have these pale ones and these darker ones, and I really love the look of the darker ones, so that's why I'm putting those in, even though those are kind of pale in the photo. And I might go over it with a lighter new pastel to kind of give it more of that daisy look. And darken the base of these plants with this really dark. It's almost like a hooker's green, but it's quite dark. And let's go in with this really, really pale color and try to do some individual little petals. I think what I might do for a little more scale is put like a single flower kind of coming in from the corner. I'll zoom in and try to get a little bit of a detail, like a detailed look at those flowers and see if I can do something a little bit more detailed, and that will hopefully give us a little bit more depth in our picture. I love how the contrast of getting a light up against a dark looks. And I'll almost throw a few little grasses in there too. All right, let's see. I think I took some other pictures of those flowers too. Oh, there we go. Zoom around and, oh, maybe like right there. Okay. Let's see. Let's get a yellow center. Maybe that more ochre color. Let's do 3. Maybe one up there. And then we'll have those coming right off the side. Nice and bold. A little shadow of brown on the edge of the centers. Let's do the new pastel so that we can have a nice crisp line. Going a little bit darker. Tap that off. Got a little bit too much dust going on. A few just little suggested flowers over here. Let's do some green. Oh, I hear my cat. She's at the cellar window. It's like, hey, I made a terrible mistake. I went out this morning. Why did you listen to me and let me out? Now I need to come in and use a litter box because I'm a dignified cat. Let me put some little dots of that just to tie those colors in. Let's see, what else? All right. All right, oh yeah, maybe a little bit more yellow in the centers because I feel like they got kind of. I'll also do some just little dabs. And then I'm going to decide whether I need any white highlights and black shadows. So I'm going to tap this off. And I think maybe I do need some white highlights in there. I might see if the new pastels will do the trick, because if they do, it'll just be a lot less dusty. If they don't stick, because it's, we do have a lot of pastel down there, then I'll use the Sennelier. Boy, I hope they offer like some. I hope they offer some like, ooh, crumbly. Hope they offer some colors, like maybe like just at least whites or something in open stock for the new pastels, because I mean there's certain colors that you just go through a lot. Clean off my pastel by scribbling it on my paper and scribble a little into the water. Deciding whether I want to do anything with the sky. Yeah, blend it with my white new pastel a little bit. I don't want to put my fingers on that sky unless I fully clean my hands, because my hands are absolutely filthy. Oh, you know what I could do? These right here, I had a few people ask about them. I don't think I remember to link them up in the description yet, but they're on the Welcome to Pastel Month video. This, you get two, I think 620 for like $6 or $7 on Amazon. They're just makeup applicators, and they're really nice, just for like those, just want to slightly blend something and not get your fingers in the mix. All right. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and pop them in the chat while I think about whether I need to add black. I don't think I do, but I'll give it thought a couple minutes to bounce around in my old head and see what I decide. And I'll see if there's any other questions, and then we'll take the tape off and look at our little frame. Actually, I think it looks all right. Looking at it on the monitor, I think it looks fine. I think I'm in danger of overworking it, actually. Okay, let's see. So type the word question in all caps if you have a question. Joe Maskey says, I know of a couple pastelists that like the dark blues and reds for the initial line drawing and buy open stock. I wonder if they'll start recommending alternatives. Yeah, I wonder. Conte, I imagine Conte offers their Conte crayons open stock, and they're quite similar. They feel like they have a little bit of wax in them, kind of like the Soho pastels have that little bit of a waxy feeling. Not really waxy, but just very smooth. So maybe they will. And I think I've never tried the Pit pastels by Faber-Castell, but I think those might be a hard pastel. So they might be similar, but I haven't used them myself. I've only tried the Goldfaber Studio myself. So if anybody has used a Pit pastel pencil, Pit pastels, and could let me know, that would be really handy how they compare to new pastels. Net Fournier says, I cheat with my oil pastels and blend them a lot with Gamsol. That's a good tip. I like to use a colored pencil to get the edges. Susan asks, question, what kind of flowers are in the foreground? Just curious. I'm not sure what they're called. They're just these little like daisy looking flowers. We have them all over like the side of the road and on the coast in Maine. I have no idea what they're called though. They're just a wildflower, some sort of wildflower. Joey asks, kind of a push and wiggle for the foreground flowers. Yeah, for those little ones, definitely just a push and a wiggle. And these are just kind of just lines, a group of lines arranged in a circle, basically. More of an impression than like a realistic depiction. Just sorry for the dead air, guys. Just looking back to see if there's any other questions I missed. Just Johnny Creation says, scared of pastels, but love watching. They can be a bit messy, but I don't think they're anything to be afraid of unless you've got asthma or some other respiratory condition where you can't have dust around you. And there's always oil pastels if that's the case, because oil pastels aren't dusty. Okay, Beth asks, question, I buy the pastel class, will I have unlimited access to it? Had eye surgery and it may be a few months before I'll be able to use it. Totally, Beth. My standalone classes are lifetime access. So if there's ever a good sale, you can buy the class and then you can do it whenever you have the time. Like I do a birthday sale every July during the week of my birthday, and I put a percentage off of whatever age I am. So like I was 46, so I had everything 46% off. And I know a lot of people don't have time to do painting classes in the summer. They can do them in the winter when they have time. I keep those lifetime access. The only thing that's not lifetime access is Critique Club. And that, is a monthly subscription, kind of like Netflix. But all the classes that you pay one price for, you have lifetime access. So yeah, you might as well get it when it's 50% off rather than waiting and paying full price. So, and I hope your eye surgery goes well. M. Lyon says, hi, Lindsay. I'm glad my work didn't need me today so I can actually see it live. Oh, yay. Yes, you can see it live. Oh, and thanks for reminding people to give the thumbs up, Rhonda. I appreciate it. I always forget. I wait till the end because I figure, well, I don't deserve a thumbs up until we're at the end and you guys can decide whether you like it or not. I should probably ask at the beginning, but I always ask at the end. It's like I feel like I'm asking you to review the video before you've watched the video. Although sometimes you get thumbs down before a video even goes up, and it's like, who are you psychic people that know you're going to hate it already? Lollipop Strawberry asks, have you ever used different types of pastels in your life? Yes, then explain. Yeah, I've used all kinds on my channel. If you're curious about any particular brand, you can search that on my channel search bar, and you might find a review or a tutorial with it. Art Adventures asks, have you decided on an Inktober theme for 2022? Will it also be pastels? I'll use markers for the most part for Inktober. And I have not decided on a theme. I might just take every prompt as its own thing. I've done figures. I've done hands. Last year, I don't think I did a prompt. I did a theme last year. I think I just went with whatever the prompt was and did something with that. I'll probably do that this year too. I think this month has been pastel month, so I think that's all the themes I can handle right now. But next month will be, I'll be doing Inktober. Okay, and I think I answered Susan's question about the new pastels already, or I talked about that already. Oh, and somebody just got a good deal on new pastels. Awesome, way to go. Okay, I'm going to go back to the end and I'm going to take another look at my picture and see what it needs. And I'll take one more set of questions at the end. So if I didn't get yours answered or I missed it or you haven't asked it yet, then you can go ahead and post it at any time. All right. I really don't think I need black in this. I think it looks all right as it is. I'm going to go back to that first photo though. And see. I probably could do some more white highlights maybe. But I don't think it really needs a black. I don't know. Well, I could do a black. If I did black, I could do black new pastel and just kind of maybe give. I think the black Sinelli would be too much like a black velvet. It would be too strong, and it would just kind of envelop and make a black hole in my piece. But I think if I go in with a new pastel where I can make it a little bit more lacy, and I can go in these parts of the trees. I don't know if you can see the contrast on your screen, but there's just some kind of like darker patches within the trees here. Just increase the contrast in the foreground a little bit, just to give a little bit of depth, and leave it all mushy and blurry and kind of less contrasty in the farther away background. Increase my contrast here. I think that might just give us a little bit more depth and be kind of pretty. And I can also put some like cracks in the rocks just by kind of scumbling, which is a really light way to use your pastels, and just kind of scrape along the edges for texture. And I can let it skip where there's like a lot of, I'm just kind of twisting my hands, just very lightly grazing the paper. I like the marks. I like the marks it leaves behind. Maybe ooh, look at those flowers. Gosh, those have been pretty too. Those are teeny tiny. Are those same? Those aren't the same things, but those are another type of little white daisy that grows. That would have been pretty too. Yeah, that would have been pretty too. Thinking I might want to do a little bit of maybe some white. Well, I kind of want to turn those to little white daisies now, but I'm not going to, because I think that I've already got them too established in there for that. But that would have been a better idea, I think. Put a different type of flower, a different color flower in there. Yeah, I think I'm gonna quit before I overwork it. Let's take the tape off and see what we have. Clean my hands off. Oh, I got a cleaner rag right there. I always love taking the tape off. It's like a magic trick. I've kept these boards wrapped with the plastic they come on, so I'll be able to use the canvas boards eventually if I want to. But it looks good, but the real reason I do that, I tape the edges like this, is so I have a place to handle the painting without disrupting it. And I just use my massive collection of washi tape for what I tape down the edges with, because it's such a gentle, low-tack tape that I don't have to worry about it tearing, or worse, having so much adhesive that I can't get that tape unstuck from my fingers. Having so much adhesive that when I go to pull it, I drop it, or it kind of, the paper pulls back because it's so strong, and then ends up flinging stuff off. I got a fingerprint in the sky though. That's no good. Maybe I can blend it out. I got a fingerprint, but I think that looks all right. That's fun. It's fun going from a little bit of a photo reference and going from memory. I encourage you to try it. I think it helps you build your observational skills when you're out and about. And yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's really fun to draw. And I encourage you to to give it a try. So just a couple of recaps I want to share with you, just compositionally, that might help you as you're painting. Compositionally, generally, now my horizon line is pretty much in the middle, but often it looks better if it's up a little higher or down a little lower than right smack dab in the middle. Also, with like your focal points, having them like a third of the way in either side and a third of the way up or a third of the way down. So like if we were to put a 3x3 grid here, we would see that this is on one of those crosshairs. This is well, this isn't quite on a crosshair, but you want to have these things so your eyes can travel through. You want to break up. You don't want to have all your things lining up. So the horizon line, I don't want to have things stopping at the horizon line. I want things to break the horizon line, and I want things to show depth. I want things to kind of cross over other things. That overlapping is really nice, and having like shapes like this that can draw your eye through the painting is also really helpful. So just think of those things when you're composing. How are you going to guide the viewer's eye through the painting? And that will really help you. And then if you're finding you have big areas without a lot of interest, scumbling is a good technique for bringing in texture and for adding some interest and adding some detail. And blend some things, but don't blend everything, because you want to have a little bit of a texture contrast too. So you don't have everything smooth. You got some smooth, you got some chunky, you got some brush strokes, you got some grain of the paper showing. Having all those different textures, I think, is really visually enticing to look at. I'm going to look one more time to see if we have any questions. The tutorial portion's over, so if you're just here for the lesson, then great. Otherwise, you can hang around and listen to questions get answered that are in the chat. You're welcome, Joanne. Oh, you guys are also nice. Lots of thanks in the chat. Big thanks to Joe Maskey for moderating. Okay, Joe Maskey says, we've had a lot of questions either about sealing to protect the artwork, for example. They want to know how to do it without final fixative. All I do is I wrap it with glassine or deli paper. I find an acid-free, like non-sticky paper, such as I have an acid-free tester pen. So I had a ton of deli paper for some jelly printing projects. And so I tested that paper to make sure it was acid-free. It was. So I use that to wrap my paintings. And I just lay a piece over it. I flip it over, I fold it around the edges, and I tape it to the back with acid-free tape. And I put it in a big envelope until I'm ready to frame it. I have used Krylon workable fixative in between layers if needed. I've used brush and pencil fixative. I just try not to use fixative. I don't like how it changes the look. If there's papers that will hold your pastel even better. This actually does a pretty good job, I have to say. I don't feel like I need fixative on this. The UArt sanded paper really holds your pastel well. Probably my favorite non-fixative paper would be the velour paper. Hahnemühle makes some. That's what I have. You could probably find it from other brands too, because I remember I used to be able to buy it in big sheets at an art supply store once. But for whatever reason, that velour texture really grabs the pastel, and you don't need to fix it. So it's up to you. Pastels, any work on paper, honestly, and this probably sounds really old-fashioned, and I guess I am a little bit old-fashioned in this way, but works on paper really should be matted and behind glass, or at least with a spacer behind glass. I know that mattes are kind of maybe aesthetically out of favor for pastels, but spacers, something that prevents your pastel from touching the glass. You always want to use glass with a pastel, because plexiglass has a static charge and will pick up some of those particles and make the plexiglass look dusty. So you definitely want to use glass and have a barrier. But works on paper are fragile. They really should have glass on them. I know you can wax things and you can spray things, and it's just not really permanent, in my opinion. But you do whatever you want to do. It's your life. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But yeah, I don't like fixative. I wrap it in glassine and frame it behind glass when it's ready to go. But I'm old-fashioned, so you can obviously do a more modern approach if you want to. Labcat says the paper I'm using, Canson XL Mixed Media. No, they're asking if it's an actual sanded paper. No, it is not. It's a toothy paper. It almost feels like the old pebble textured mat boards. I'll see if, I don't know if the light will catch a texture here, but this is the paper. I don't know if you can, it's not really Listen to my fingernails. Does that help describe what we have here? It's like a pebbly texture, I would say. It it's not sanded, but it has a grit to it. It's not as gritty as, say, clear gesso, if you were to paint clear gesso on something, but it's fairly close to that texture. I think and it feels like it has a bit of a coating on it. That's why it works so well for oil pastel, because it doesn't, the oil will seep in, because I have found that on the back of an oil pastel that I've done on that paper, I can see the oil leaching through. So I just make sure I have a sheet of glassine on the back as well as on the front, just to make sure it's fully wrapped. So it doesn't leach onto anything else. But it feels like it has kind of a coating to it, which is kind of weird to explain. It's almost like a sizing or a coating or something, but it helps the oil pastels glide, but it still grabs a lot of it. It's very interesting paper, and it's such a bargain at Blick. And I think Jerry's has a good price too. Amazon is outrageous. I don't buy it there. You'll pay 4 times what you would pay at Blick, but I think it's just a great value. 40 sheets for like $6. You really can't beat it. Brett asks, this is really basic. How do you know at this point in your piece if you have enough of a white and black balance contrast value just by practiced eye? Yeah, I just look at it. And sometimes it would take a couple days. Honestly, if you're painting this at home, you don't have to decide that right away. I would highly recommend setting it on a shelf or on your easel and leaving it be for a couple days, and then looking at it, and then you'll be able to, or take a picture of it and look at your picture later, and you'll be able to tell whether it needs more or not. It's just kind of like cooking. You taste it. Is it salty enough? Is it too salty? Is it sweet enough? That's the same thing. But generally, I'm looking for some contrast. I'm looking for a pleasing range. Everybody's tastes are a little different. Just like I might think something tastes great and you might think it's too salty. We all have our own aesthetic preferences. So yeah, I would say it's definitely by eye. Hannah asks, what do you recommend to seal your pastels? I don't use that many sealers, so I wouldn't be the best person to recommend a fixative. I use Krylon workable fixative because it's cheap, and I tend to use fixative if I'm like, I saturated the tooth of the paper and I need more tooth. I've also used brush and pencil fixatives, but I use those for color pencil and sometimes oil pastel. But beyond that, I don't have a lot of experience with fixative because I don't really like it. Oh, thank you for the sweet words, Katrina, about my channel. I appreciate that. Oh, Joe left a link to the group backward in chat a little ways if anybody wants the Facebook group. Katrina says, not a question. All your lives deserve a thumbs up from the start. We just forget. Oh, that's very sweet of you. I haven't decided on Thursday if I'm going to do another soft pastel or if I'm going to do an oil pastel. So you guys can let me know if you have any preferences. Or I could do a pan pastel. I haven't really done the pan pastels. Brenda Walsh asks, pan pastels, can you scrub pastels on something, then use a makeup sponge? Yeah, okay, I think I know what she's asking. I think she's asking, like, can you take a pastel and scribble it on paper and pick it up with a makeup sponge? You can do that. You probably won't get the concentration as you would for pan pastels, because pan pastels are just so much softer than other pastels. Like I bought the soft tools first, and I tried picking up from my pastels, the pastel sticks, and I just could not get enough. Pan pastels are like eyeshadow. So yeah, you could scribble it out and pick up the loose dust and apply it, and that would be quite similar. You could get a set of cheap eyeshadows and you could play with that, and it would be very similar to pan pastels. That's what I did to start to see if I liked it or not, and then I ended up really liking it. But yeah, definitely give it a try. The soft tools they're much more dense than the makeup sponges, and one thing I've noticed about the soft tools is that they do not attract as much media. So like when you pick it up and you apply it, let's see, do I have a makeup pastel? Do I have a makeup? Let me show you. I can show you right now. I have a makeup sponge here, and I have a soft tool sponge. So the makeup sponge is really squishy, and the pan pastel one is much more dense. So this one's kind of dirty, so I apologize. I don't have a clean one right away, but I got my pan pastels here. Well, I can show you the difference too. So let's see. I'm going to take one swipe of green on the soft tool, and let's see. I'm going to start at the top of my pad of paper, and I'm just going to drag it down. And by the time it's stained, but there's not a lot left on my sponge. And that was just with one swipe. So if I do this, I'll do the end because the end is a little bit cleaner. One swipe with a makeup one. And I feel like I'm not getting as much pastel down on my paper, and a lot of it is trapped in the sponge. Now that one is stained too, but I feel like I have a lot more pigment like just trapped in there that it won't let go of. And you can see just the line, how the line went a lot longer. And I started them at the same spot when I used the soft tool. And I mean, when you look at how much I put on there, I mean, I did put about the same, but I might even put a little bit more on the makeup sponge, and the makeup sponge just kind of grabs it. But you were asking about taking, let's just do green so we don't get mud. About scribbling, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we do with the soft tool, pick up our color that we scribbled. Start it at the top of the pad again. That works pretty good. It doesn't pick up quite as much or drag it quite as far. You can do it with the makeup sponge. Pick up what we can, start at the top. It's quite anemic. I would say get some soft tools. These are pretty inexpensive, and then you could try it with the pastels you already have, and then maybe get the painting set of pan pastels if you decide that that's something you want to explore further, because you can mix these colors and make whatever you want. So let's say you want aqua green, so you could take look how it's not even making that messy because we've taken pretty much everything off that sponge. And I pick up a little bit of that. Now that I am getting white on there because I haven't blended it out anywhere. I could take a little bit of that green, and I can mix up that color. And I can keep layering, and it doesn't dirty the other colors, but I can make really pretty much what I want. So, and gram for gram, I actually think they are a pretty good value, but only, it's only a good deal if you're going to use it. So, oh, that was a fun little experiment. So yeah, definitely the soft tools are worth picking up. They're not that expensive. Try them with regular pastels, and then, you can see if you want to move over to the getting a few pan pastels, or they're cheaper per stick per pan in the sets. So I would recommend like saving up for a set, because you really need a few in order to do much with them, in my opinion. Having just a couple random ones isn't going to do you as well as having a set. And the painting set just gives you all the pure colors, and you can mix everything else from there if you don't want to go any further with it. So all right, I'm going to just check from the bottom again, see if there's any more questions. My fingers are so covered with pastel that I'm not sure if my laptop is is recognizing my fingers. Oh, let's see. Oh yeah, I got to see if you guys voted for oils or soft pastels for the last pastel month tutorial. In the class, soft pastels is all about soft pastels. I don't go into oil pastels in that class. So I probably wouldn't recommend it if you were only using oil pastels. Okay, let's see. A question just came in. With the proper tools, are pan pastels the only ones needed instead of hard and medium soft? Yeah, you know what? You can do everything with, you might want pastel pencils to go with it for like little details, but it comes down to the tools. These are soft tools. They're like little palette knives with these little socks on them, and you can get a lot of detail with them. So you can do everything with just the pan pastels. And a lot of artists who love the look of pastels but can't stand the chalkiness on their hands do that. And I would really check out the Pan Pastel Instagram, YouTube channel, all that jazz, and watch some tutorials and see how they're using them. And you'll get a lot of information that way. You can combine them, but you don't need to. A lot of people do colored pencil over pan pastels. It gives you that kind of like powder blender effect, and it's really fun. Oh, somebody would like a pastel portrait. Maybe I'll do a pastel portrait. That might be fun. Oh no, JC Design missed the entire live stream, and she set a reminder and everything. Oh, that's a bummer. I hope you guys got notified. I set it up last night, hoping that people would see it. Kid Blue 24 asks, I've heard you mention using deli paper for protection in sketchbooks. Is that acid free? Any brand? Well, I tested the brand I have. Let me go grab a box and see what it says on it. I'm not sure. I got it at Sam's Club. Let me see if it has a brand. Quick Wrap. And let me tell you a funny story about this. I ordered a box of this. It was like $34. Maybe no, it was $14. It was $14. I remember 1,000 sheets. Okay, that sounds great. That's a great deal. When they shipped it to me, it was 5 boxes of 1,000 sheets each. So I've got like a lifetime supply of deli paper. So I've been like trying to figure out everything I could use it for, and I tested it. So that was acid free with my acid free pen. So I feel comfortable using it in my artwork, but that's the brand it is. It might all be acid free where it has to like come in contact with food. It probably has more stringent guidelines on what it has to be. But yeah, that's the brand that I use anyway. And I use it for that. So. I'm just scrolling back to see if there's any other questions. I can't read and talk at the same time. NH Chicky says, did you say jelly paper? Deli paper, the stuff I just showed. That's funny. Jelly paper. That's probably, that would be like what the jelly plate people sell. Question, do you have a grape watercolor tutorial? I would love to have some nice radiant grapes, but have trouble with finding the right colors or color combos. I have at least 2 watercolor tutorials with grapes, one with a little like a little china ceramic bowl with grapes in it, and then I have another one with grapes hanging off the vine, which is the one in the little china bowl is all watercolor. The one with the grapes hanging off the vine might be mixed media, but I have at least 2 anyway, maybe more. I have like 3,000 tutorials. So just go to my channel and type grapes in the little, where the little microscope search area is, and you should find it. Or go to my blog and search if you can't find it on YouTube, because there's just so many videos. It's sometimes the YouTube search feature doesn't work very well. Susan says you can't get Canson XL sand grain in Ontario, only rough mixed media. It's new. It probably will get there eventually. It just recently came to America, so I think they had it in Europe first. People were asking me about it, and it was months before I could even find it. All right, I think we're caught up. Thank you all for watching. Oh, one more I just see from Trisha B. Oh, I see. Oh yeah, one more question here. Trisha B asks, how does one go about testing to see if it's acid free? You can buy pens. They're called pH tester pens, and you just scribble on it. And if it stays blue or purple, then it's acid free, or the pH is in the non-acidic range. Like there's like 7.0 or 6.8 or whatever it is. It's like a litmus paper basically, but it's ink. And then if it turns gray or yellow, then it's acidic. So gray might be neutral or slightly acidic, and yellow is definitely acidic. You could Google it and find them. Mine was from American Crafts because it was for testing things for your scrapbooks, to put in scrapbooks. It was an archival, to test archival materials or test things to see if they're archival. I don't think American Crafts makes those anymore, but other companies do. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to end the stream, and I appreciate you all stopping by. And if you have any questions afterwards, you can pop it in the comments underneath the YouTube video. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a thumbs up before you go. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.